Hi guys, my 6 subscribers I think counting. Thanks guys for subscribing to me. But today I'm gonna be reading something I've had in my box, in my favorites list, as it is now, for a long time, and I've never really gotten around to reading it because I was reading other stories, of course. I'm still recovering from a cold. I don't know when I'm gonna get over it. But yeah, today I'm gonna be reading "Dreaming with Ponies" by Rob Cagran 53. From the same person that brings you My Little Dashie, which I'm not really gonna say anything about because I read some of his comments about it. I mean, I loved it, but okay, it's about 4,000 words, so I'm expecting uh, at least 20 minutes of recording. So I'm gonna go ahead and get my microphone adjusted and read "Dreaming with Ponies" by Rob Cagran 53, edited by Fool on the Hills, inspired by this song, and I'm probably gonna play that before the video. Today was another calm and relaxing day for Twilight, who, sitting on a park bench, watched as Rainbow Dash and Pinkie Pie ran around in a game of tag. Applejack and Rarity stood at the edge of a pond, bickering on something to do with their manes. Finally, Twilight looked to her right, seeing Fluttershy on the bench beside her, looking down to the ground and lightly crying. "Fluttershy, what's the matter?" she asked softly. Fluttershy tried to look more cheery, wiping her tears away. "Oh, nothing's wrong." Twilight looked into Fluttershy's sorrowful eyes. Something about herself was bothering her friend. Did she say something or do something? Maybe there was something wrong with her that she hadn't seen before. Seeing the pond, an idea came to her. So she stood from the bench. Something felt wrong. Her bones and her entire body ached in pain. She felt as though she had just been in a fight or put through intensive labor. "Oh no, Twilight, don't," Fluttershy began. "It's all right. I just want to go see if there's something wrong with me," Twilight said, slowly continuing her march to the pond's edge. Her joints ached and pocked as she walked. She glanced at her hooves, noticing her vibrant purple coat looked faded and old, like Granny Smith's. Twilight felt a twinge of fear in her gut, so she made haste in reaching the pond. "Well, hi there, Sugar Cube. What you doing over here?" Applejack asked the fast-approaching Twilight, tipping her hat for a better look. "I want to see my reflection, if that's okay," Twilight said without stopping. I don't know, Twilight. God dang it, I can't do Rarity. "You know what happens every time you see yourself, and Fluttershy gets so upset every time you leave us." "I see myself every time I leave?" Twilight questioned, almost at the pond's edge. Behind her, Fluttershy, Pinkie Pie, and Rainbow Dash had come to join the others. When she reached into the water, she peered down and nearly jumped back in shock. She was old. She looked old enough to be one of her friend's mothers. Twilight looked at the others in shock, unsure of what was going on. "This is a dream, dear," Rarity spoke up, adjusting her mane in the process. "But we're waiting for you, Twi," Applejack butted in. "That's all you gotta know." They all smiled to her, though Fluttershy looked as if she was on the verge of bawling her eyes out. As he began to fade away, Twilight felt another change in her surroundings. She was no longer in the park, but in the chair inside her library. Twilight awoke with a light gasp, the dream still horribly fresh in her mind. At the time, she hadn't realized it, but the dream was familiar. She felt as though she had just been having them many times lately. All her friends alive and young once more. And they always said the same thing just before she'd wake up. "We're waiting for you." Twilight began to rock in her chair, slowly tipping forward, then using her momentum to go back, and then repeating. It helped calm her nerves, and after that sort of dream, she needed to relax. She wasn't the young mare she was nearly a century ago. Her bright purple coat had lost its luster. Though its purple color remained, her mane didn't have the same luxury. The lavender completely gone, silvered with age. However, her purple and red stripes remained, helping her keep herself distinct from the older ponies in town. Granted, they had their own individual cutie marks, but Twilight felt nice, knowing there was something else. She looked to the clock in her library. She had been asleep for only 15 minutes, but the dream felt so much longer. She swore that she had spent the entire day at the park, having fun and enjoying their time, and yet she herself had difficulties due to her age. But why was she the only one that was still old? It was a mystery that bugged her constantly, but she would never dwell on it. After all, it's only a dream. Looking at the clock again, Twilight remembered she was waiting for some special visitors to arrive. With nothing better to do than sit or read a book she's read countless times before, she decided to reflect on her surroundings. All the books she had collected over time sat on her shelves that lined the walls all the way around the tree hole. Every book in the library she had read numerous times, though her more recent books she had only read once. Some of the books were even special, given to her by her friends before they passed on. Special editions of rare one-of-a-kind pieces she made sure to keep where only adult ponies could reach, and a few select were for her eyes only. The hardest part of living and maintaining the library was putting the books back where they belonged. She had an assistant, a baby dragon by the name of Spike, who helped her years ago. But as time grew on, so did he. He wasn't as large as a fully grown dragon yet. But about a decade ago, he had to leave for the first of his many century-long naps. It was hard for her and her friends to say goodbye, more so for Twilight herself, since she had raised them from birth. They'd all been long gone, while he still had centuries of life ahead of him. Before, she had at least her friends to lean on when she was sad. Now, she was alone. Twilight felt a pang of pain in her chest as a memory of the events came to mind. She hated when this happened. She and the others had cried enough at the time, and yet she still had more tears when he was brought up. She wiped a tear from her eyes, trying to forget about the memories. She longed to remember them, but they were so hard for her. So, to help distract herself, she returned her focus to her books. Books were a part of her life, which is why she lived in a library. She maintained them, cleaned them, read them, and above all else, made sure to find the right book for the right pony. A skill she had learned over the years was being able to tell what kind of book any pony that walked in would enjoy. As important as the books were to her, there was one other thing that, no matter what, was stronger than the binding of any book: friendship. The word held such a strong emotional tie to her for its basis, what she had been studying for a great portion of her life. As much joy as the word brought to her, it also hurt. With each passing decade, another of her close friends would pass. It got harder each time it happened, but Twilight kept strong. She had to, for them. Twilight knew that her friends would never want to see her in just because their time had come. It didn't make it any easier that she couldn't pull herself to meet any new ponies. She didn't want to betray the friendship she had built with the others. At least there was something that, no matter what, would bring her joy when they arrived. Ding-a-ling! The bell just above the library door rang, signaling that Twilight that a guest that she had guessed. Today being Sunday, she would close the library early so she could rest and indulge in a good book. But every week around the time, some special visitor would stop by for dinner. Grandma! Aww! Twilight smiled, looking at the doorway as a blue unicorn filly ran towards her, before stopping just inches from her seat. Twilight leaned down, her back cracking in the process, and giving her a tight hug. Aww! Hello there, Dawn. Oh, so nice to see you again, Twilight said, rubbing her muzzle. This reminds me of the final gift from that one person. And then at the end, she tells the story of how Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy were like in love and they had a kid. And then at the end, she dies. And it's like so sad. This is starting to remind me of that. She then looked back at the doorway, seeing two larger ponies, a dark purple stallion unicorn whose lavender mane resembled her own, what her own had once looked like, stood beside his wife, a yellow unicorn mare with a long and elegant teal mane. Twilight. Oh man, talk about ruining the moment. Twilight seemed to focus more onto the stallion, her mouth keeping its large grin. Dusk. Oh. Killing me, Rob. You're killing me. At Twilight's words, the stallion marched over and gave his mother a large hug. Hello, Mom. How are you? The stallion backed up, Twilight's feeling a single tear running down her cheek as they separated. It didn't matter how much times a week they came to see her. She still got she still got emotional. To Twilight, a week felt like an eternity as she waited for their arrival. She was just grateful that they had come in the first place. My fine dear, how are you all doing? Twilight peered back at the yellow mare, her daughter-in-law, who seemed to be holding something bundled in her right hoof. Is that? Does Dusk Sparkle nodded. Oh, it's so hard for me to say. Oh. Then backed away to allow his wife to come forward. Yes, Mom, that's her, the new foal. Oh. The yellow mare took the seat next to Twilight's chair and lifted the wrapping to show her the foal. Twilight could barely contain her glee when she saw it. She hadn't seen such a young foal since Dawn's birth 3 years ago. And then her son told her about this new foal. She nearly had a stroke. Oh, don't say that. It could happen. Mother, this is Dream Sparkle, your second grand foal. Twilight looked at the sleeping foal, sucking on one of its hooves as it slept. It was so young, and she had so much potential. She saw so much potential in that foal. Twilight couldn't keep her mouth straight, even if she didn't want to. But being a grandmother, how couldn't she? She could remember how happy she was when Dusk had entered her world. Then years later, when he had little Dawn, and now Dream, the cutest filly that she had ever seen. So with the new foal introduced, they all sat down and talked. Dusk spoke mostly about things at home and his new job as the university professor for Celestia's School for Gifted Unicorns. He wasn't the most powerful unicorn, but he was still knowledgeable with spells and magic in general. He was also very shy, much like his father Caramel Apple, one of Applejack's cousins. Oh, don't tell me he died too. He was the sweetest stallion, quite literally, Caramel Apple, sweetest stallion she had ever met. They lived together in the library. Oh, I knew it, until the day that he passed, like all her friends had. Oh, dude. That's kind of sad. I sure miss him too, Mom, Dusk said, looking at the framed photo of she, Caramel, and Dusk at a young age. Yes, I do every day. Twilight sat back in her rocking chair, staring at her son. She could see the intent in his eyes, tears longing to pour out, but he held back. Little Dawn then grabbed his attention, and so he showed Dawn of some of his favorite books from when he was her age. Twilight looked at the back of the photo, reflecting on their time together. They were some of the best times, only matched by when she and her friends were together. She closed her eyes, allowing her image to appear before her. She gazed upon him for a few moments, but quickly opened her eyes, not to dwell on it. What she saw then startled her. She was back in the park again. Well, howdy there again, Twilight, Applejack said, sitting on the park bench beside Twilight. Glad you can make it so soon. I don't understand. What is this? Twilight asked, looking around the others. Well, I reckon you're dreaming, Applejack said, spitting the stick of hay out. And it seems you're having these more frequent, which means you're about... No. Applejack stood up from the bench and began to walk away. Wait, AJ, what do you mean? Twilight stared blankly at her cow pony friend. Applejack returned a moment and then Applejack stopped a moment and turned back to look at Twilight. Remember Fluttershy's dreams, sweet sugar cube? Twilight thought for a moment. You might not remember when you're here, but once you wake up, you should. Y'all know what, y'all know what to do. Twilight was just about to ask again when a loud noise brought her back from her dream. Crash! Twilight was startled awake. Oops, sorry. Twilight looked at her groundfoal sitting amongst a pile of books, from whence she assumed the foal had tried to reach a book that was just out of reach, using other books as a step stool. Twilight loved her curiosity, but using her beloved books as a stool was not the way to show it. Oh, I hope that's comedic relief. I don't want it to mean something later. Twilight went to speak, but the dream was still floating around her mind, bothering her. Applejack had given her two very clear messages. It's about that time, and Fluttershy's dreams. From her mother's forelegs, the small foal began to stir. Its purple eyes blinked out of the sand as they looked around. Oh, honey, go show Dream her grandmother, Dusk said, standing up on the couch. She carefully carried the foal towards Twilight, and Twilight's worry over the dream disappeared, replaced with joy in seeing her grandfoal awake. She had been anxious to see her, but the foal was apparently tired from the trip and had woken up only once to feed. The yellow mare leaned over to Twilight, allowing the foal to look at her grandmother. Twilight smiled warmly, but the fool didn't recognize her. Oh, and thus began to cry. She was scared of her own grandmother. Oh goodness, here we go again, the yellow mare protested in agitation. It took me an hour just to get her to fall asleep in the train ride. Twilight smirked, giving a light chuckle. My dear, if it takes you that long to put a fool to sleep, then you are not doing it right. You're not doing it right. Mother, Dusk began to protest, sensing the potential beginnings of mother rivalry. Oh, thank God, comedic relief. Still crying in her mother's forelegs, the foal continued its relentless assault. Dusk's ears flattened at the noise. He and his wife had barely made it through the process with Dawn, and now they had Dream to raise. Oh, that kind of sucks. It's a... Oh my God, I can't imagine having triplets. I feel bad for my parents. It's apparent that you haven't found your mother's touch yet, if I may. Twilight slowly extended her forehooves to the foal, and in a huff, her daughter-in-law handed it over. The foal continued to cry. Twilight brought the foal close, whispering, "Oh, Busey, hush now, quiet now. Someone's getting their head torn off." Shh, no, it's okay. It's me, your grandma Twilight said, giving another warm smile. The foal paused for a moment, still unsure as to who the old mare was, went back to her crying fit. Twilight, being Twilight, however, knew that needed to be done. Using the magic she still had, she grabbed a little wood box from the nearby table. She levitated it beside her, resting it on the tea table beside an open book. She opened the box with another touch of her magic, revealing a statuette of six Fallout? Revealing a statuette of 6 ponies in a group hug, each one a different color, but all the same smile on their faces. Mother, are you sure? Ignoring her son, Twilight cranked the small key on the inside of the box while the foal continued bawling. With a final click, Twilight knew that it was ready and released a small platform of ponies began to spin and music began to play. Oh my God, I already read that line. Twilight mustered her voice to sing. She hadn't done something like this in ages since Pinky's passing, but her voice was still up to the task. My little pony, I'm not gonna try because people are sleeping. Twilight kept the slow tempo of the song, her voice not faltering as she sang. She looked at the small foal in her arms. who was quieting down as the song continued. Dusk and his wife looked in awe as she continued to sing and hum, telling the tale of six friends who found the magic of friendship. The fool was sinking further into quietude, doing nothing but looking at her grandmother. Twilight stared blankly at the fool as scenes of her past flashed in her mind. She remembered a gift she had received from her five friends for Dusk's birthday, the music box. The wooden chair she sat in was hoof-made by Caramel. Oh, another gift from Dusk's arrival. The memory seemed vivid as she remembered opening the box for the first time, and upon seeing the small figure she had begun to cry in front of her friends and husband. Is there something the matter, Sugar Cube? Applejack said with a worried look. Twilight used her free hoof to wipe away a tear. No, AJ, nothing's the matter. Thank you all of you. Twilight looked at all her friends, each one sitting and smiling, AJ and Fluttershy with their own foal beside them. No. Aww. Is it AJ and Fluttershy? Is that an AJ Fluttershy ship? God, I have so much trouble with that. Twilight had hers a little while later in life, but it was better late than never, as Applejack would say to her. Finally, Twilight looked down at her hooves, seeing the foal awake, looking at the ceiling in amazement. So, we gonna celebrate or what? Pinkie Pie shouted. I wonder if Pinkie Pie had a baby. She shouted, blowing a kazoo near Twilight's ear. Pinkie! Applejack shouted, grabbing her tail and dragging her back. A sudden burst of noise had upset the foal, starting him into another fit of tears. Twilight, being a new mother, was unsure of how she should react. When asking for assistance, the only pony to speak up was Applejack. You gotta find your mother's touch, Sugar Cube. We can't tell you... Oh my goodness. Applejack spoke from experience, already having three foals of her own. That'll be something you'll learn on your own. Twilight was looking around for any toys that she could help calm the foal when she spied the music box. She opened it, cranked the key, and allowed the music to play. It was such a beautiful sound, one she could recognize as their group song. Pinkie had written it some time ago. It was her one gift to all of them. Something they'd all share with their children to pass, the message of friendship. It was about them, the six bearers of the elements of harmony. So when the time was right and the song repeated, Twilight cleared her throat and began to sing. The song's normal fast tempo was slower and gentler here, perfect for the situation. My little pony, my little pony. I'm not sure how to hum that. My little pony. I used to wonder what friendship could be, until you all shared its magic with me. Oh, Rainbow Dash then stepped forward in the row of ponies and enthusiastically recited, Big adventure. Pinkie Pie bounced next to her friend, wrapped a hoof around her neck, and singing, Tons of fun! Rarity spoke up next with a beautiful heart. Applejack came in with faithful and strong. Fluttershy's line followed strongly. Sharing, oh my god, it's killing me. Then all six mares continued in unison. It's an easy feat, and magic makes... Oh, so Pinkie Pie wrote the song. And magic makes it all complete. You have my little pony. Don't you know? Oh my god, I can't even get the tempo right. This is making me sad. Don't you know you're all my very best friends? The six mares fell silent and looked at Twilight's foal, now sleeping in its mother's hooves. Twilight looked up to her friends, all of whom were either openly tearing up or trying not to. Twilight remembered all of this. It was the last time they all sang the song together before they went back to their own lives. They still got together and talked, laughed, and enjoyed themselves. But never, never again would they have such a moment of unity. What the hell is this? Not the story. Something just. I felt like something crawled on my leg. That was weird. 25 minutes. Twilight opened her eyes again, spying the small foreigner who was fast asleep from her voice. She looked to her son, smiling at her and tearing up himself. Twilight hadn't realized she had been crying while she sang, but she had managed to keep the song to the very end. Once the music ended, she gingerly closed the lid on the music box. "Beautiful, Mom," was all Dusk could muster, nuzzling his mother's neck. Twilight lipped a thank you to Dusk and then looked to his wife, who gave a genuine smile. Twilight handed the foal back to its mother, careful not to wake it up again. Her family remained at home for another hour, the two of them telling how life has been since they spoke last. Little Dawn showed Twilight the spells she had been learning, amazing her in the process. She was learning very quickly for her age, reminding Twilight of herself. The entire time, voices of her past echoed throughout the library. The laughter of the Phillies reminded her of when she and her friends had laughed and played board games together. It felt so long ago, and yet she could swear it happened just yesterday. One more time's cruel joke. Goodness gracious. It's kind of sad. I don't know what to say. It's just quite simply a sad story. Dusk's voice broke her from the thought. "Well, she must have gotten it from you, Mom," Just joked, "'cause she certainly didn't get it from me or Trisha." Dusk nudged his wife, who huffed. Twilight remembered the topic at hand and focused back on their conversation. It must have skipped a generation, I suppose. Twilight looked on as Dawn played with her baby sister. Dusk nodded and looked at the library clock. "Well, Mom, it looks like we should be going. I'm sorry our visit was so short, but we need to get the baby home so she can rest. The trip wasn't easy on her." Twilight snapped back to reality again and spoke. "From Canterlot, of course it wouldn't be," she agreed, watching as Trisha rounded up the foals. She watched as her son, daughter-in-law, and two grandfoals were about to walk out of her house. Twilight's mind began to prod at her like she was forgetting something. She looked to her side, at the open book. She didn't remember placing it there, but after flipping a few pages, she stumbled upon her old Elements of Harmony crown. Why did she have this book out? Another message? Dusk, one more thing. One more thing. Jackie Chan. That old guy from Jackie Chan. Dusk stopped and looked at his mother, who produced the open book, besides her a golden crown topped with a purple jewel. Twilight was sure she had finally come to understand what her friends had meant. The pieces of the puzzle were coming together. First, with Fluttershy's dreams. For a reason she was unsure of, memories of Fluttershy coming to her with troubling dreams flooded back to her. She had said that she had dreamt of their four friends all waiting for her in a park. Now. "Do you know what this is, Dusk?" Twilight asked, slowly floating it to her son. "Well, yeah, wow, I haven't seen that since I was young." They had been giving her messages, and she felt that other things were influencing her outside the dreams. The last time they saw each other, Fluttershy had decided to pass her Element of Harmony necklace to her grandfoal, and now everything was fitting together for Twilight. She knew what must be done, and now Applejack's other message had made clear sense. It wasn't almost time. It was time. "Dusk, I want Dawn to have it." Dusk looked at his mother with shock. "But Mom—" "Every pony has their time, Dusk. I don't know how much longer I will hold on to this world. But before I do, I must pass the element of magic on some pony fitting. And from what I've seen, that pony is Dawn. Well, I mean, Dash's went to Scootaloo's daughter. Aw, Dash never had a... Oh, Pinky had a grandfoal. Aw. Same with Rarities and Fluttershy's. Applejack's, too. All that remains to be passed on is mine, which is what I'm doing now." Twilight carefully rested the crown onto Dawn's head, still too large for her. It shifted to a tilt on her head. Is this really for me? Dawn asked in excitement. Oh. Twilight nodded and looked back to her son and daughter-in-law. One day she will fully understand its meaning. Until then, keep it safe. The ponies were all silent for another short moment before Twilight spoke once again. Now get along. You have a train to catch. Trisha nodded, taking the foals outside. Dust remained at the doorway, then slowly walked to his mother's side. I love you, Mom. Take care. See you next weekend, he said, kissing her on the head. I love you too, my Dusk, Twilight said with a smile and tear before shooing her son out. Don't keep them waiting, young man. Dusk nodded again, running out the door this time, and making sure to close it behind him. With her magic, Twilight moved the shades of her house to peer through the window outside, watching as her family left her home. She looked back at her library, empty and quiet, just full of old books and memories. She opened the music box. Oh! She opened the music box once more, and from the inside of the lid pulled out a photograph. The same 6 ponies were on it, posing with a small purple dragon. Her longtime assistant Spike, who a decade ago had to retreat for a century-long slumber. The memory stung, causing Twilight to look away from the photo. She cranked the key on the music box once more, allowing the melody to fill the room. She hummed with it, rocking in her chair as she went back in time with her memories, as they came and went. She eventually found herself in the park once again. This time, her 5 friends were all standing side by side under a large tree, smiling and happy to see her again. Well, how did it go? Dash asked in excitement. How did what go? Dash asked confused. Passing on the element. Did you feel something once it left the house? Twilight thought more about it, and after a short time, nodded her head. Yes, I felt relaxed, very relaxed for that matter. I couldn't even move my hooves. I was so tired. The others nodded in agreement, then Pinky pointed to a hill about a couple 100 feet away. Come on, Twi. We got a picnic party all set up for you and waiting for you. Oh, Twilight said before beginning to bounce her way to the hills. Hey, wait for me, Dash shouted, taking the air and speeding off. Applejack, Rarity, and Fluttershy began to run off, leaving Twilight sitting by herself under the tree. Fluttershy stopped and looked back, confusedly tilting her head. Twilight, aren't you coming? I can't keep up with you all, you know that? From ahead, Applejack shouted back. Of course you can, Sugar Cube. Just put one hoof ahead of the other and run. Unsure, Twilight braced herself from the world of pain that would come from pushing her body so hard. But as she leapt, she felt nothing. There was no pain, no popping of joints or other ailments. She looked down at her hoof, seeing the bright purple coat once more. Seeing her bright purple coat once more. It had been years since she looked this good, and even without seeing her face, she could tell that she was young again. Taking a look back at her mane, the dark eyes glistened in the sunlight. The dark blue glistened in the sunlight like it had done so long ago. She was young again. She felt free. She could do anything, and her age wouldn't stop her. Are you coming, Twilight? I mean, you don't have to if you don't want to, but it's okay. Before Fluttershy could continue, Fluttershy ran past her in a full gallop to catch up with the others, a large smile on her face as the wind blew past her mane. Fluttershy smiled warmly. She had no reason to cry anymore. No more would Twilight have to dream about them all together, for they were there to stay. 6 friends, together once more. Oh, man. That's the end of the story, so if you don't want to hear me have a little reflection about this, it says it came from a song. If it's on YouTube, I'll see if I can get it in the beginning of the video, have you listen to it. If not, it'll be at the end, and if not, I just couldn't find it on YouTube or anything. So, yeah, this story reminded me of the one where she's talking, where Rainbow Dash is with, she's the last one alive, and she's talking to everybody. She's talking to her grandfolks and stuff. her grandful, and then yeah. So I guess that's the end. Have a good night, people.